Burnett here. Today's Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, where we're going to continue our conversation about the microbiome and really dig into the specific bugs and different things that we can do to build our own healthy microbiome that is that's beneficial to everything we are, right? It's beneficial to our physical and mental and emotional health. It's so much of everything that we do, and having that really intact, robust microbiome and feeding it well and knowing what it is that we need to do to feed it, those are the things that really help to push us to a super healthy position, optimized, even if we're struggling with other chronic conditions, right? It can change the game as far as how we manage other chronic conditions that may not be from the microbiome. But what if, excuse me, what if many of these conditions that we struggle with are truly from an imbalanced or dysbiotic microbiome? And learning how to support that fairly simply, I think, is pretty cool. And so this is something that I've been digging into for the last couple of months, really trying to dig in, read about. We meet, I'm part of a group where it's called Functional Medicine Grand Rounds. So if you're a practitioner out there and you want to be a part of a group where we are looking at cases and discussing cases and trying to come up, especially when they're super complicated, because that's always the stuff that I need help with, are the really complicated cases, and being able to discuss and review cases is a really big deal, and it's really helpful. And so we talk a lot about the microbiome and how to impact that so we can help to manage some of these super complicated patients and clients. So anyway, that's been a big part of the last, 5 shows, I think, that we've done, just sort of a deep dive into the microbiome. A book that I'm reading is called Super Gut. So it's a pretty cool book. So that's been a big part of this study as well. So which is out there. It's out there. For anybody to read. So Super Gut's a great one, great resource. But as always, Gut starts the show with gratitude. I am, I'm in this position right now where I see patients who are kind of like I already said, they're incredibly complicated with a lot going on. And they work so hard to understand and manage their symptoms and their condition, and try to understand the why behind it. They work so hard at whatever it takes to help to minimize, mitigate disease and to feel better. And the thing too is they're so young. So many of them are so young. I have one patient right now who she's, early 30s, and, she's just out there reaching for who is going to best be able to help guide her through this process. And so I'm part of her team, and so I think that that's a big thing to understand, is that, if we're struggling with super chronic stuff, a lot of times we've got to have a team. And so, I think that I'm talking about these because they're so recent. I visit with them on a regular basis, and they're always on my heart and always on my mind. And I always want to do better and to know more and to figure out whatever it is that I can figure out to help in whatever capacity that is. So I think all of this to be said is that what I'm grateful for are these people who, they change me, right? They teach me. I learn from them. I have so much gratitude for the willingness and the ability for them to allow me to learn with them. And if there's something that I don't know, then I'm going to go and do research, whether it's true research, or you know, review cases in this functional medicine grand rounds, you know, any of that stuff. I'm grateful for those who are willing to review cases with me, and I'm grateful for those who are allowing me to just take the time to research so I can do my best for them. So, you know, I work with just some really amazing people who don't deserve some of the junk that we're dealing with, right? Most people don't deserve the chronic conditions that they're struggling with, and they don't understand why. And that's what I get more than anything, is they're just asking the question why, which is why I'm always, you know, I'm always saying, okay, we've just got to keep asking why. There's something there somewhere. We've just got to figure out what it is. And so, anyway, you know, I think that I have a lot of gratitude for them. They are always in my mind and on my heart and in my prayers. So I don't know if any of you are watching, but know that that's truly how it is. You're always just sort of they're all just right here with you, right? Always in my thoughts. And as I dig and do research into some of these things, you know, more things come up that I can help other people, right? And that's what it's all about. And what I pray for too is those people who are struggling, kind of like, you know, what I dealt with early on when I was going through my own health junk, is, you know, it's what brought me to where I am today. And so my prayer for all of them is it brings them to a place where they are finally healthy and able to manage whatever it is that they're dealing with, but then can teach others and you know, be of service in that way, because you know, that's so often, you know, why we go through these things is to help others. So anyway, that's a little bit long-winded but truthful, and that's just kind of the way that it goes. So we've been talking a lot about the germ theory versus the terrain theory, and you know, the germ theory being, you know, early on, for example, you have, what was his name? Was it Louis Pasteur, who, you know, who started pasteurizing milk. He, you know, people were getting sick all the time from, you know, what they thought were microbes. I mean, they were microbes, right? But, you know, he started pasteurizing milk, which, as we know now, destroys milk, destroys any goodness in milk, is this pasteurization process. So if you're out there and you're drinking milk, and it's pasteurized and or homogenized, then it's just not a food. It's certainly not a good food. It just makes us mucousy and yucky, right? So if you're a milk drinker and you like it, milk and cheese, all dairy, then you know, think about getting raw, right? You can get, depending on where you are in the country, of course this is for the United States, you can get it, you can do milk shares. I know there are places where you can buy raw. A lot of places you can't, which makes 0 sense. But anyway, this all goes back to germ theory, where we have this fear of microbes because we're fearful they're going to make us sick, instead of the terrain theory, which is where we are today, and what we're discussing now is, it's not about the outside microbes that make us sick. It's more about the internal microbial population that is not robust enough to allow for these more opportunistic or pathogenic bacteria to come in and make you sick, right? And so I think that there are times where there is a symbiotic relationship, and if we don't have the microbiome, then it becomes pathogenic. So I think that you know, having this mindset around not being fearful, especially of things that are unseen, you know, not being fearful, but having the knowledge on what it is that we can do to build a good, strong, healthy, robust microbiome, so we don't have to be fearful of these things. So really, you know, we have specific microbes that are allies, and you know, some of these there are. So when I do GI testing, we have the capability of looking at the microbes that are in the gut. There are a lot of other things we can look at too, right? We can look at gallbladder function, and we can look at pancreatic function, and we can look at inflammatory markers, and the list goes on. But it also, at least the one that I do, I mean, my favorite is Vibrant Labs, and they do the Gut Zoomer. So that's pretty much the one almost entirely that I run to date. Mostly because it will show us the commensal bacteria, which are our friendly bacteria. It'll also show us the opportunistic bacteria. So those are the bugs that are normal and natural to the GI, but if we don't have the right commensals to keep them in control, then they become opportunistically pathogenic, right? And so then we have true pathogenic organisms that are not supposed to be there at all, that really are problematic. Think parasites and Giardia and things like that, right? So what the Gut Zoomer can do, though, because this whole world of the microbiome, although we all have a good idea of what it is and what it means at this point, there's still so much to learn and so much we don't know. And there's so many organisms that we don't know about. You think of something like a sauerkraut. There are a lot of organisms in there. We just don't know what's in there, and it really depends on where it's made and who's making it, and so many different factors go into which organisms grow in different mediums. Sauerkrauts and yogurts and kefirs and that kind of thing. So, but the Gut Zoomer will give us a list of microbes that will help to balance out that specific patient or client. So that's amazing, because then I'm not having to guess and say, okay, we might need to do some of these spore organisms, we might need to do some reuteri or reuteri. People say these things so differently. But it gives us this list. And so sometimes we still have to go through kill protocols. If there are microbes that are, truly pathogenic, we need to be able to get rid of those. But oftentimes, if we're supporting gut health and bringing in the right bugs and the right food for the bugs and these things, then we might not have to worry about doing a kill protocol. So, we've, over the last few weeks, a couple of times talked about SIBO and SIFO. So small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and small intestinal fungal overgrowth. So what if, and I think it depends on the person, it depends on the case and the severity of the case, but what if instead of having to go in and do Xifaxan or even natural herbal antimicrobials, what if we could just go in and balance out the microbiome and feed it well and feed it properly with the right bugs? What if that then takes those pathogenics, puts them in the right place, creates an environment in our GI that is of the right pH to support the bugs that are going through there, and then we are able to manage and eliminate these symptoms of SIBO and SIFO just by building the bugs in our gut. It can be done. And everybody's different, so we can't just assume that everybody's the same and do the same things, but it's pretty fascinating stuff, and I just think it's great. So I want to dig into a few of these that are well studied and what they do, because I think that knowing the right bugs and what they do and what their role is in the gut, it can help us to know what it is that we need for ourselves. And so we can dig into this. We can do the research on different types of bugs for different situations and different conditions and issues. There is a list, I have it, and I just am thinking about this, but there's a list of organisms, microorganisms that I have that are specific to mental and emotional issues. So if you have anxiety or depression, there are microbes that you can take in that can help to build those and help with these mental and emotional disorders. So so the lactobacillus, I've heard it reuteri. That's usually what I say. I've also heard reuteri. So whichever one is right, don't know. right? So this is not my world. But this is one that is well known, well studied, especially in female health. And so this is so interesting to me too. It used to be a dominant species. Now it's nearly extinct in modern guts, right? It was super problematic. So it produces oxytocin, which enhances empathy, intimacy, sleep, and skin health. So there are certain bugs that we can take in that are good for our skin. How cool is that? That's one that I'm doing right now too. It boosts collagen, it deepens sleep, it modulates immune tone, and it's restored through long fermentation yogurt using inulin in low heat. So this is a little bit of a foreshadowing, I think, because I do want to talk about the yogurt and what I'm learning, what I'm experiencing with this. So when we talk about this, you know, there are species that we can create via yogurt, via fermented foods, via you know, a multitude of ways of doing that, and though at specific heats. Some of them, there are a lot at different heats, you know, 100 to 106, depending on, you know, the organism. So it takes some time and some research, and I'm still new into this, but it's been a ton of fun. I mean, but I'm a nerd, so I think it's really cool. And my husband's enjoyed eating yogurt, which has been really fun. So we'll talk more about that. This is an interesting one too. So Bifidobacterium infantis, and we will see this in formulas today. But the interesting thing about the infantis microbe is it is the foundation of the infant's microbiome, and is now largely missing in adults. And so it's fascinating to me that when moms give birth, there are a couple of things that happen. You have mom's microbiome is enveloping that baby as he or she is going through the vaginal canal. Another thing though is because the baby's coming out, the mouth is open, right? You've got the mouth and the nose. It is also inoculating the GI of the baby as well. So I mean, you know, who would have thunk? I mean, I know a lot of people know this, but you know, it's just this beautiful beautiful creative thing that God made, right? That is, you know, this is how we start a healthy immune system in a child, is through mom's microbiome. So if mom is missing some of these bugs that are super important to the baby's health, what's going to happen? Well, I think what we see a lot now is the asthma, the allergies, the autism. There's an A that I'm missing, but all of these things are related, and they're all immune dysfunctions. Autism is a whole different world in that, but it is grouped into this A. I don't know why I'm missing one of them, but anyway, but there's also HMOs. So HMOs are in human breast milk, and we can get this. These are like prebiotics, and we can get this in formulas as well, in like prebiotic formulas. And so it is, you know, the breast milk is this just amazing food for baby. And if you know, we went through this, I think we're not there as much as we used to be, but we went through this time where we were, you know, the world, the mainstream media, the medical community was trying to talk us out of breastfeeding our children, saying we don't need to breastfeed our children. It's like saying we don't need a brain. I mean, it makes no sense. You know, we have this attitude that we can go in and just cut out the things that God naturally made for us, like food. You know, breast milk is food, like our thyroid and like our gallbladder. Our gallbladders are, you know, it's the #1 procedure, I think, at least it used to be in the United States. I would imagine it still is, you know, removing a gallbladder. What happens if you don't have a gallbladder? You can't break down fat. And it leads to a whole host of issues. So if you ever are in a situation where somebody's telling you you've got to, have your gallbladder removed, I would find second and third and fourth opinions and look outside of conventional medicine, because you can save, at least in large part, you can save gallbladder. The appendix, they're showing amazing, like all of these what was it, like these neuronal, what are the words I'm looking for? Because this is something that I just learned, so I'm not saying it very well. But lots of nerves in the appendix, and it also helps with the microbiome. And so we just go in, it's like, oh, well, we don't need it, let's just take it out. When it for some people can really change who they are with in not having that appendix. So God doesn't do things accidentally, right? All of the things that we have are there for a reason, even if we don't understand what that reason is. There have been a lot of times, in history where we didn't know what that reason is until more research is done. You start figuring it out. So back to the Bifidobacterium infantis. It is important for gut-brain immune development, for reducing colic, gas, and immune dysfunction. It can improve adult bloating and bowel patterns. So think about that. We have so many babies who are colicky, who are gassy, who have these immune dysregulations, right? And it's oftentimes linked to missing this bacterium, Bifidobacterium infantis, or other microbes as well. So we have the Lactobacillus gasseri. I think that's how you say it. I've only learned about this one over the last couple of months. Supports weight loss, appetite control, and insulin sensitivity. It reduces visceral fat. It kills pathogens and bacteria, and it is best delivered through home fermented yogurts and prebiotics. So when I'm working with, and this is the cool thing about all of this, is when I'm working with people who are struggling with weight loss, if I'm working with people who are a little heavier through the middle and have that visceral fat, right? That visceral fat is what's really dangerous. So it's the fat. Fat is super biologically active, and it produces a lot of hormones. And so if we have all of this fat that's wrapped around our organs, it can be really problematic for a lot of people. And so if we learn how to, so we can get the gasseri in supplement form. And I mean, I have taken supplements, probiotics for a long time. But what if we can get a bottle of these supplements and make our own at home, where it's then 10 times more therapeutic because you can grow a lot more? It's just it's a game changer, right? And so this is the stuff that's super cool, to be able to do this and to lose the weight and to feel good and to control your appetite and insulin insensitivity, and you're doing it through food at home. I mean, and talk about a money saver. That's huge. So good. Okay. So another one that we hear a lot in women's health is Lactobacillus rhamnosus. Again, very well researched and a highly resilient probiotic. So it reduces antibiotic associated diarrhea, childhood eczema and atopic conditions, respiratory tract infections, and it enhances the mucosal healing and immune modulation. So I think that we can assume often, that anybody who's struggling with symptoms and or chronic conditions, there is some sort of GI dysregulation. And so even if we don't have true GI symptoms, GI symptoms can present as brain fog, they can present as migraines, it can present as lack of focus, and all of these things. So just because you don't have, pain and bloating and discomfort doesn't mean it's not coming from the GI. So this is one that can be really helpful for that healing process. So Bacillus coagulans, a spore-based heat-resistant soil organism. So if you've heard of the spore-forming or the soil organisms, I think my recollection, the first people who brought, or the first organization who brought soil-based organisms to the market is Garden of Life. This is early on. It might even be before I was in nutrition school that I read this book and was learning about soil-based organisms. And so they are really important to our health. You know, it's these going, you know, the topic of our discussion is about growing your gut garden, right? I'm a gardener, and you know, it's very often that my husband will be like, do you want some gloves? No, I don't want any gloves. I want to be digging in the dirt. It's important to dig in the dirt. And these soil organisms are important for us. And so what they can do is reduce IBS, constipation, inflammation. They improve protein absorption and gut resilience. So keeping that in mind for the coagulants. There's also in many, many formulas. You know, the products that I use are always professional lines. Garden of Life is not a professional line, and it's not one that I use anymore, but there are lots of spore-based probiotics out there that are really good. I think, though, how do we know? Because we don't. Besides, you know, with what we're told, we don't know if they're truly alive. And I have a lot of trust in these professional lines that I use, so I believe that they are alive. But I think what we need to be really careful of is if we're not using professional lines, how do you know that what you're buying and spending a ton of money on is actually going to benefit you? It's going to, you know, maybe it has a few live organisms, but the billions that it's talking about are mostly dead. Now, there is some benefit to dead organisms, but I think that ideally we want to have them alive. And so if we learn to make them on our own, we're looking, instead of billions, we're looking at trillions. And knowing they're alive, because you can see the consistency of the yogurt. Super cool stuff. It's really fun. Okay. There is the Lactobacillus plantarum, another one that you can see in a lot of formulas. It's found in sauerkraut and kimchi, so a really great one to ferment. It reinforces the gut lining and produces antimicrobial peptides, supports mood, cognition, and reduced gut inflammation. So this plantarum is a great one. You know, I think the cool thing too, not what I was going to say, but is you can take all of these as you're being therapeutic, and you can start to learn what you need for your body, and you can just mix them all into your own formula. If you're making them at home, and that's what I did, and I just think it's super cool. So this is a good point, because I've not been very good at talking about our sponsor, but when we're looking at peptides, you know, this is something that I'm starting to dig in deeper and deeper as I'm working with patients and clients, well, specifically patients because it's in the clinic. But Susan Drake is the founder of Mountain States Medical Products. I just lost my words. Anyway, and she is, Mountain Medical Concepts. There's a supplement company called Mountain States. Anyway, so she is the founder of Mountain Medical Concepts, and she has peptides from a company called NuBioAge, who's a great company, and have really high quality peptides. You know, we've got to be really careful. You know, I talk a lot about being careful with supplements. We've got to be careful with peptides too. There's a lot out there that we don't know if it's good, if it's not good. We don't know anything about it. So we want to make sure that we're buying from practitioners who know the quality of the supplements and the peptides that are being used. So as far as gut health goes, we've talked about this, I think, every show so far the last few weeks, but we've got what are called Guttides. So they are peptides that are specific to gut health. And so you can get these, some of them in combination, some of them not, but you take these specific ones, because peptides, a lot of times we hear about them, they're injectable, right? So you inject it into your belly or wherever. But these specifically are taken orally because they're going straight to the gut, right? And so we have the BP157, which if you know anything about peptides, that's the sort of the one that most people know about, because it's this sort of overarching, does a lot of things kind of peptide. And so yes, it's amazing for gut health, but it's also great for mitochondrial support and for inflammation and autoimmune conditions and that kind of thing, pain. So the BP157 is one that's sort of far-reaching and is a great peptide. But then we also have lorazepatide, and lorazepatide is very specific to the gut and shows a lot of promise with gut issues, including the ulcerative colitis and celiac and things like that. So your autoimmune gut conditions, and then there's KPV, which is another one that is not specific to the gut but is considered a guttide and important for gut health. And then we have butyrate. So this is kind of fun because butyrate kind of is jumping ahead just a little bit, but butyrate is a short chain fatty acid. We've talked a lot about short chain fatty acids, but it's considered a postbiotic. And so it's kind of a little bit of both, actually. It's really interesting because butyrate we get from this is not a good day for my brain. We get butyrate, it's from resistant starches. Yeah, thanks for laughing, Henry. It's not good. So anyway, resistant starches. So what are resistant starches? They are cooked and cooled potatoes, right? So it's the cooking and cooling process that changes the potato into a resistant starch, which is beneficial for the gut. Now, it kind of depends on who you are and what you can tolerate. You know, if you're struggling with glucose issues, is that ideal? In small amounts, I think it's fine. We don't want to just go and eat lots of cooked and cooled potatoes because it's super carby. So can it spike blood sugar? Yeah, I think so. But it is important for feeding the microbiome. So you can eat a green banana. And I don't mean just a partly green, I mean a full-on green banana. There's virtually no sugar in it. It's all resistant starch. You can get green banana flour and bake with it, green plantains, things like that. So those are really great things that you can do that help to build your own butyrate. And so what butyrate does, so those resistant starches feed the microbiome. They feed specific bugs, not all of them, but they feed specific bugs. And then they're also supportive of the gut lining. So if we take in butyrate, we're kind of bypassing the gut, the microbiome having to make butyrate, and helps to support the gut health. In my functional medicine grand rounds group, one of the things that we talked about for one of my patients is doing butyrate enemas. Nobody likes to hear the word enema, and it's fine, but it can be super therapeutic. You can do coffee enemas that can be really great for liver function, gallbladder function, for getting past some of these chronic conditions, or being a part of a therapeutic protocol to get past some of these chronic conditions. So coffee enemas can be really great. Don't just go do a coffee enema. You got to know what you're doing, right? So it's not simple, but it is super therapeutic and something that I think that we don't do enough of. So if it's something that you're wanting to look into, either research it, reach out to me, whatever it is, it's fine. Just don't go and just get random coffee and just do a coffee enema. It's not good. But same thing with butyrate. Butyrate enema is a great idea, or doing a coffee enema with butyrate, right? You kind of get a double whammy there. But doing that, it goes straight into the lining of the colon, where that can be super helpful for people. Butyrate is also antimicrobial. It's anti-carcinogen, so it's anti-cancer, so it can help to kill cancer cells. So these things are really important. And what I'm going to say is, this came from my group who told me that. I didn't know that. I've not seen the research on that, but these are doctors who have been doing this stuff for a long time, and they're doctors, so they can talk about cancer all they want. So I'm regurgitating what they told me, but I think it's an important piece of knowledge to have, and something that if you want to look into it and dig deeper into it, then I think it's a smart thing to do. So let's see, Akkermansia. So Akkermansia muciniphila. So it's a mucilaginous type of organism. And so they are mucin feeding. They maintain gut health, lining, and integrity. They are associated with leanness, improved insulin sensitivity, lower inflammation, and they're encouraged with polyphenol-rich foods like pomegranate green tea and cranberries, but I'm going to also throw in olive oil. So those are all polyphenol-rich foods that you know, it's, you know, when we're told to eat the rainbow, this is why we're told to eat the rainbow. These polyphenols don't feed us. I do think that they have some antioxidant capacity, but when it comes to, I mean, of course they do have some antioxidant capacity, but the main goal for them, you know, we don't necessarily digest them, it's our microbes that are digesting them, so then we utilize it. And so they take this and they feed off of it, which then is benefiting us. So you can get, you know, powder supplements that are these polyphenol-rich supplements, or you can eat pomegranate, green tea, cranberries, and olive oil. And, you know, the list goes on. All of, you know, blueberries, all of these really brightly rich foods they're also beneficial for us. And then, oh gosh, this is one that I'm really terrible with. Fecal bacterium pransnitzii. That's a great one. But we're starting to see it more and more, and so it's a major butyrate producer. There are other types of short-chain fatty acids. Butyrate is kind of the main one, which is why we, you know, sort of keep hitting on that one. But it's key for colon health and anti-inflammatory effects. If someone is struggling with IBD, which is bowel disease, it's bowel disease or bowel syndromes, inflammatory bowel syndrome, right? So if it's inflammatory bowel disease, then you're looking at things like ulcerative colitis, celiac disease, ulcerative proctitis, these things that are where it is a diagnosis that the colon is being impacted. IBS is a totally different thing, where it is just a catch-all phrase for heartburn, bloating, pain, discomfort, diarrhea, constipation, right? It's all of those things. So a lot of things can be IBS. We think of SIBO and SIFO, those can be IBS. Any kind of infection, any kind of dysbiosis can be IBS. But those who are low in this fecal bacterium pransnitzii, those who have IBD, IBS, and autoimmune conditions are low in this bacteria. I'm not saying this correctly, but so if we can boost that, then we have the ability then to hopefully at least start to manage the IBS, the IBD, and different autoimmune conditions. And so it's also fed by resistant starches and arabinogalactan. So this has been a fun thing too in digging into all of this, and we'll talk more, but it's all of the prebiotic fibers that we can use to build the microbes that we want in our gut, right? So different microbes feed on different types of fibers, and these are the things that are really important for us. And I think, you know, quite honestly, when I was, you know, I periodically will track my foods and what I'm eating. And the thing that was the hardest for me to do was to eat enough fiber. You know, I'm not a big person. I've already got to eat a whole, you know, ton of protein. How do I also get in that much fiber? So I'd probably get in under 10 grams of fiber a day. Now I'm getting in closer to 30 because I'm being super aware of it. I am supplementing with different fibers, but intentionally supplementing. I think I have now maybe 5 different types of fibers, both soluble and insoluble fibers, for different purposes in supporting my gut. And I'm going to start off saying too, I don't and have not had gut issues, not in a really, 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 really long time. But if I can make it better, which is going to support everything that I'm doing, then that's what I'm going to do. And I want to be able to share my experiences also. Okay. So here's what we want to move into. So I think we want to, we talked a little bit about this a little while ago. You know, when I do a GI panel and it comes back positive for opportunistic microbes, then I have to then determine, okay, is this a situation where I need to do a kill protocol, or is this a situation where we can just support the gut? These days, I lean more toward supporting the gut and allowing it to do its job. and less toward kill protocols. Now, when I talk about a kill protocol, it's killing the opportunistically pathogenic bacteria, but it's doing it with natural antimicrobials. So the antimicrobials that I use rarely impact the commensal microbes, the good, healthy gut bugs, but they impact the bad ones. Other things in the GI, though, that can impact the microbes, we hit on this a few minutes ago, but is the pH. If your pH of your gut is off, then you don't have the ability to, you're not going to support the specific microbes that are supposed to be there. And so we can then take this back to the hydrochloric acid in your stomach. That's there for a reason. And I need to do this. I keep talking about it and I forget about it. But talking specifically about taking the antacids and the PPIs and the acid blockers and that kind of thing are super damaging to our gut health. And not only that, to everything else that's about us, because if we don't have this fire, it's what hydrochloric acid is, right? It's super acidic acid, duh. And so it is this fire in the belly that helps to keep microbes at bay that might come in through food. So it keeps microbes at bay. It can help keep H. pylori at bay, which can come in through if your family has H. pylori, you're kissing, you're whatever, right? You can pass on H. pylori, and that fire in your belly can help to mitigate and manage H. pylori. If you don't have that fire in your belly, things can come in and they can, set up shop and do a lot of damage. Beyond that, though, if we don't have the fire in our belly to break down our food, then we aren't breaking down and utilizing the food that we're eating because we don't have that fire in our belly. So we want to ensure that we have enough hydrochloric acid to do the gut's job. It's supposed to be acidic. We also have this place where often we're told that we're supposed to drink this this alkalizing water. Well, if we're drinking alkalizing water, are we alkalizing our GI? Kind of makes sense to me. You buffering that acid, and we don't want to buffer that acid. So we've got to be really careful with these fatty things that come out about alkalizing water. Whole other topic in and of itself. But yeah, just be really careful with that because it can be a problem. So shifting from kill mode to cultivation, I think is really smart. So when in functional medicine, functional nutrition, we often are talking about killing the yeast and the parasites and the bugs. And same, in conventional, when somebody, there are conventional medical doctors now who are seeing SIBO patients. There's a time where people didn't believe that SIBO was real. They didn't believe that Candida was real. Well, of course it is. But there are conventional medical doctors who see it, who test for it, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to give you this antibiotic for it. Even the antibiotics that are supposed to stay in the gut can be problematic. And so we want to be really careful with those. And so what if, though, and to add on to that, what I hear over and over and over and over and over again is, yes, they feel better on the antibiotic, and then what happens? You get off the antibiotic, you don't manage the GI, you don't support the GI, you don't bring in the prebiotic fibers and the microbes and all of these things to then replant your garden. And what's going to happen? You're going to have the opportunistic bugs that are going to grow out of control again, and you're not managing the pH of your GI. And maybe you haven't managed the problem that you've got with a sluggish gallbladder, right? These are all things that are super important to gut health. So instead of just thinking, okay, we got to kill, maybe we do, or maybe we just have to cultivate. Maybe we just have to bring in things that our GI needs in order to proliferate the good commensal bacteria and crowd out the bugs that aren't supposed to be there, right? That's really kind of what it's all about. So precision fermentation is therapeutic. So this goes to understanding the types of microbes that you need specifically and how to ferment them, what temperature to ferment them at, and then how to grow that so you can, I've been taking, a spoonful, several spoonsful a day of this probiotic yogurt that I've been eating that is got these trillions of microbes in it. It's really amazing stuff. And so I think that we talk about that a little bit because I talk specifically like about milk and yogurt. I've been against yogurt for a long time, and I'm certainly against yogurt that you just get at the grocery store. I think there might be some kefirs that are pretty good, but it kind of goes back to the probiotics. How do you know what's alive, what's not live? There's one coconut yogurt that I know is alive. It's the GT's coconut yogurt, because if you leave it on the counter and you take the cap off of it, it grows. I'm like, this is proof of a good probiotic dense food, right? And it's coconut yogurt. And so those who don't tolerate dairy, this is a great option. Now, when it comes to dairy, this is what I have done and what I would want you to think about as well. So we go back to our dairy that is pasteurized and homogenized being problematic. It's not a real food anymore. But what we're doing, first and foremost, is we're not getting A1 milk. We're getting A2 milk. I hope that I don't have that backwards. I think that's right. So A1 milk is Holstein cows. And your bigger cows, they have a higher production of milk, but they also have this genetic variant that creates these casomorphines. I hope I'm saying this right. I did put this in my notes. But they're starting to show problematic and inflammatory. So if we're drinking A2 milk from Jersey and Guernsey cows, those are A2. Goat milk, sheep milk, those are all naturally A2. Then we have a lot less of these problematic components of milk that are not inflammatory. And then the fermentation process decreases the load of the casein that a lot of people are sensitive to. So what I'm not saying is that everybody can do this type of yogurt, but I am saying that if we have the ability to take a milk, because it's already, unless you're getting it raw, it's going to be pasteurized, and then you heat it anyway, which is another part of it that I was like, I don't want to heat it. You're destroying the milk, but there's a reason for it. It's thickens it up and it changes the protein structure, and so. But if you're putting the microbes back in it, then you're allowing for it then to proliferate and do its job. So it's creating more enzymes. It's fermenting and creating more bugs, and the bugs are gonna do their thing. And so and you do it for 36 hours. My understanding is most conventional yogurts are, I don't know, 6 or 9 hours or something, virtually nothing. And so they're full of sugar, and they're full of gums, and they're full of crap that we don't want and don't need. So if we can take a little bit of extra time and make this in our home, even better. So my first batch I did with A2 cow milk. It's delicious. Then I wasn't able to make my second batch. I was going to make it out of nut milk, which you can do. So I don't know how it's going to turn out yet. Ended up, my husband didn't know what it was and sort of screwed it up. But anyway, so that was my project for last weekend that didn't happen. So hopefully it'll happen this weekend. But I also got some goat milk. So it's pasteurized, yes. But I got goat milk, so I want to try all of them and see how they all do and how they all ferment and turn out. So, but there are different things that you can do. You can add different types of prebiotic fibers that are going to do different things for these yogurts as well. So depending on the type of yogurt that you're making, you add the different types of prebiotics and then the different probiotics that are specific to your needs. So it's really kind of, you can get super specific with it and have a lot of fun with it. And so that's been the stuff that I've been kind of having some fun with and trying to figure out. And I'm almost to that point now where I can start looking at my patients and clients' GI panels and say, okay, this is what we need to do now to support you through what you're going through. So it's really fun to feel like I have, I always want more tools in my toolbox to help people. And as simple as this is, so many people, they're taking so many supplements and it can just be over the top and it's just a pain. What if we can just do a little yogurt, whatever it's made out of? You can do coconut yogurt too. So whatever works best for you, these are the ways you can kind of think outside the box on making it ideal for your situation, your body, your health status, right? So let's see, more fun stuff. So yeah, let's talk about fibers. Interestingly, okay, before I get into that, so we'll hit that in just a second. Prebiotics feed our microbes, right? So the fibers that we eat, so whether it's sweet potatoes, fruits, vegetables, these are all different types of fibers. And if you have had SIBO in the past or not, but you've been told to eat low FODMAP, FODMAPs are acronyms for specific types of fibers that the SIBO organisms, there's several of them, but there's one that's I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But there's 5 or 6 or 7 of them, at least that are studied, that you can show up on a GI panel that if they're high, we have a pretty good idea is creating an uncomfortable situation with this overgrowth of SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And so eating low FODMAP means you're not feeding those specific bacteria. But what we need to understand is eating low FODMAP does not get rid of the bacteria. So it doesn't put them back in the right place. It just decreases the symptoms of bloating, whatever the discomfort is. So so what I don't want is long-term low FODMAP diet. So if that's something that you're doing, you got to find a way to stop, because you're cutting out a whole host of prebiotic foods that are super important to all parts of our GI. So I might have somebody do low FODMAP for a short period of time just to manage symptoms, but that's about it. I'm going to get them back on FODMAPs as quick as I possibly can. And so when we look at different types of prebiotic fibers, we've got things like inulin. You'll see inulin in lots of different types of manufactured foods. So chicory, Jerusalem artichoke, those are all great sources of inulin. I just went to the store and I bought inulin, right? So because I wanted to be able to play with it therapeutically. I wanted to know how much I was getting and play with it. So there's also FOS, fructooligosaccharides. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. So asparagus and bananas. Again, the green bananas are going to be higher in those types of fibers. Then we have GOS, I think it's galacto-oligosaccharides, so beans and lentils. Then we've got resistant starches that we talked about. Again, green bananas, cooled potatoes. Acacia fiber, you'll also see that in some foods. It is super gentle on the body. Great for somebody who is struggling with SIBO, and it's anti-inflammatory. And then we've got arabinogalactin, which supports this Faecalibacterium pransnitzii. So tough. Now, there are other fibers that we hear a lot that I think that we need to consider that are at least were good and maybe are problematic now. One of those being psyllium husk. So psyllium husk it creates a gel in the GI, and it has the potential of doing lots of great things in the GI, pulling out excess cholesterol and hormones and that kind of thing. So there was a day that psyllium husk was good. What we're finding now is psyllium husk, tiger nuts, tiger nut flour, another great resistant starch. Because of where they're coming from and the practices, they tend to be high in heavy metals. And so this was something that I was discussing with my cousin, who she's got a lot of autoimmune stuff that she's dealing with. We talk about her case pretty regularly. And she was using a lot of tiger nut flour, and cassava as well. we're trying to do the right things for ourselves, and we're trying to eat the foods that we enjoy eating, but sometimes we've got to replace ingredients, and so that's a lot of times what the tiger nut flour can do and the cassava flour. But they're coming back showing they're high in metals and lead, and so it's really sad. And so what I did, I create resources for people all the time, and so I have a high fiber mix that I like to create, and it included psyllium, it included tiger nut flour. So now I'm taking it out just to be safe, right? If you can find a source, then those are great options. They're really, really good. But I think if you don't know the source that it's coming from, if you're not sure that it's safe, then you don't do it. You just do some of these other things. So another one that's not on here is chia seeds. Chia seeds are great fiber. A lot of people say they're high in omega-3s. They are high in the precursor to omega-3s that doesn't convert well. So true omega-3s are from your fish sources. And other meat sources as well, but really high in your fish sources. And then we go into polyphenols. So polyphenols are the compounds that feed the beneficial species, and they also suppress pathogens. So super cool stuff. So berries, pomegranate, green tea, cacao, olive oil, turmeric. And here's the thing too, and I just learned this, I learned it through this book. We are told, and this is what, it's all through functional medicine, right, or in functional nutrition, but we're told that for curcumin, which turmeric, the herb or the spice, turmeric, the active component, the most important component of it for therapeutic purposes is the curcumin. It's not well absorbed. And so we're told, okay, for the anti-inflammatory effects of curcumin, you have to mix it with piperine, which is a component of black pepper, and a phospholipid, or fat. And so most of our supplements we see that is this curcumin is just that, and it's mixed. And so we know that it's much better absorbed that way. What I didn't know is that taking turmeric and I believe curcumin, but taking it as a supplement, going straight to the GI, it then stays in the GI and is antimicrobial and supports the gut. This is brand new to me. I have always told people just take it, you might as well just eat it as a spice. So this is the best thing about what we do, right? There's always so much to learn, and understanding the benefits is amazing. And so eating turmeric is a great idea. Even though it's not well absorbed, it has impacts in the GI. And if you need to do therapeutic dosing, then you can do that as well. So I think this is a great, all of these things are great for just eating food to support your microbiome. So cool stuff. All right. So this is a use probiotics with intention, but not blindly, which I think is very smart. We spend so much money on probiotics. I've had people spend a ton of money on probiotics, and sometimes some people still will, and that's okay. And there are times when I will too, but now that I know how to make my own, it will be way, way less. And so it's important to know also that most probiotics don't colonize. We have our spore forming that tend to colonize more, but most of them don't colonize unless they're paired with the right food, format, and method, right? So understanding the way that we ferment, and some of them still are just going to pass through, but they still play a big role in managing our symptoms and addressing our symptoms and building our microbiome. Even if they go all the way through the GI, they still push. They're building up the short chain fatty acids, which are going to stay there and support your gut lining, right? So these things are super important, and they're creating more anti-inflammatory effects. And then, kind of going back to some of the stuff that we've already talked about, but I think it's important to reiterate, is the things that are super disruptive to the microbiome. That is just everyday stuff. That is a problem, and we got to keep this stuff in mind. But it's the glyphosate, right? Glyphosate is Roundup. I still see people, I saw the guy across the street from me putting Roundup in his yard, and the next day he and his dog are sitting in his yard. What's that doing to the microbiome? You know, to the skin, on top of it just being super carcinogenic and toxic, right? Okay, so NSAIDs are ibuprofen, naproxen, those things. They're super disruptive to the microbiome. PPIs, which we talked about, the proton pump inhibitors and the acid blockers. Artificial sweeteners are a problem. So you think of your, your blue pack and your pink pack and all of those things. Now, something like stevia is going to be okay. I think erythritol is okay. Some of these sugar alcohols are okay. Alcohol in and of itself, not good. It can be really disruptive to the microbiome. Chlorinated tap water, it's there to kill microbes. What's it going to do to your GI? It's going to kill your GI, your microbes. So drinking water that is filtered, that gets out the chlorine, as well as the fluoride and all of the other toxins. I have a patient that lives up in the mountains, and he was talking about, he has a filter, but they're in the mountains. What could be in the mountains? Well, except he did say there's a lot of mining that happens up there, so sure, that could be an issue. But I did a search for his water, and it's terrible. It's really bad. So I'm hoping that we can talk him into a better water filtration system. I distill my water. The distillation gets out pretty much everything. So think about that. If you're interested, I have some resources for you on that. Obviously, processed and packaged food, full of toxins, full of all kinds of junk that can be disruptive to the microbiome. And then, of course, chronic stress and sleep issues. Those are, it's the stress that's the top of the pyramid here, right? It perpetuates everything, and everything perpetuates it. So stress is inflammation, stress is high glucose, stress is, different conditions, and all of those things push stress. So managing that is really important to a good, healthy, robust microbiome as well. So I think to hit the last of it, it takes time. All of this stuff takes time. I tend to see people for quite a few months, minimum of 6 months in most cases to start to, now we might see progress sooner than that, but to really start to move forward in whether it's managing symptoms, mitigating symptoms, decreasing illness, decreasing inflammation, building a robust immune system and microbiome. All of those things, they just take time. And so, what this says here is it can take 3 to 6 months for new species to root and shift your symptoms. And then full body change can take 12 to 24 months or more. So consistency does matter, and knowing these aren't just immediate fixes. They're a long-term fix, but they're also a lifestyle. This is creating good habits to support your health, for your health and your family's health for the long term. And so I think having that in your mind as you're going through your journey, whatever that looks like, is it's important just to know that what you're doing, it makes a difference, even if you don't feel it, but over time you will, and things will get better. I have clients that I've been with for many, many years, and you get to the point where you're just adjusting, which is great. But that's life, and that's the body. It's super dynamic, and it's always going to need adjusting as hormones change, as we get older, all of those things, and as life situations happen. So anyway, I think that we are at the end of our time. Want to make sure that if you have questions, if you're looking for good peptides, looking for Guttides, if you're struggling with gut issues and want to try some good Guttides, these are great resources. NuBioAge, reach out to Susan Drake from Mountain Medical Concepts. She's got all kinds of cool stuff that are there to support practitioners. Now, if you are someone who is struggling, then you need to find a practitioner, and Susan can help you with that. But if you are a practitioner, Susan she's got lots of great information on, and great products that can help to support you and your clinic and patients and clients. So anyway, good stuff. She can click on the QR code to go to her website. You can also click on the QR code. I left up here again the oral terrain. I just didn't have time. I should have, but didn't have time to create another. I will do a gut terrain brochure and handout, and something for everybody to take home. But I think once we get through this, and as I'm moving through my own journey with all of these things, that's the stuff that I want to put in a handout like that. So a brochure like that, that's a little freebie giveaway that you can take with you and use and have some fun with. So anyway, you can always find us here streaming live 10 a.m. Mountain Time on kuhsdenver.com. And then, of course, you can find me, Taste Life Nutrition, and all the socials. It's Taste Life Nutrition. So you can find an assessment that you can fill out that I can reach out to you, and we can chat about it and see if there's a way that I might be able to help you in whatever you're struggling with or whatever questions you have, or if I know someone who can. I've got a lot of great resources and referrals who do some really cool things in this world. So appreciate them. Appreciate you for being here. Let me know if you have questions. And I will not be here next week. We've decided to take a long Labor Day camping trip. So we will be back the following week and have some fun with our special guest, who I'm not sure who it is right now. So we'll figure that one out. I should know this before I start this show, but prep is not always my favorite thing to do, or what I'm really good at. So anyway, I'm more of a last minute. But let me know if there's anything that I can do for you, and we'll see you here in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody.